Welcome to Globevisa's pioneering series of meeting pros.
I'm your host, Daisy. This series is help you to connect with the specialists and professionals in the fields of immigrations. And today we have a fantastic opportunities to have a conversation with Mr. Jerry Morgan, who is the CEO of Mercan Group and also one of the pristine Portugal players in the Portugal Golden Visa program.
Thank you, Daisy. In terms of Mercan, well, we're celebrating our 36th anniversary this year. So, that's quite in immigration, that's quite a unique accomplishment.
Wow.
Not many companies will last that long.
Yeah, 35 is quite a long time.
It is. But in terms of European immigration, we started in 2015, focused on Portugal when they created the rehabilitation category. Back then it was 280,000 or 350,000 euros. And we grew with the program to the point in 2023, one out of every two people going to Portugal would invest in one of our projects. So we had a 50% market share back then, and it resulted in us now having well over 4,300 Portugal investors, investing 1.3 billion euros in 30 internationally branded hotels in Portugal.
That is quite impressive statistics to learn. So for today's podcast, we're supposed to divide that into three parts. So first, let's start with the trends of immigration in the European. So the first question is the European immigration programs are always quite popular and attractive to the investors. However, from the investors' perspective, the government are continuously raising the threshold for the requirement of immigration. For example, the amount of investment and the time they stay. What do you think the reason behind these stricter trends?
Well, I think in the last 2-3 years, there's been tremendous upheaval in the program. The European programs have become very popular, whether it's a CBI or an RBI program. Changes have been tremendous. Now we have Spain closing, you have Turkey increasing their prices, Cyprus closing. And I think a lot of it's being driven by policy changes. I think what people are starting to say, if we're going to have these type of programs, there's got to be economic benefit. There's got to be jobs. There's got to be things that are going to help the economy, not just some passive program where really it doesn't generate any benefit for the economy. So I think there's more of a welcome, especially for the residency by investment programs. And what you've seen in places like Greece is a redirection of the program to focus more on things that are a benefit to the economy. And I think the changes reflect that. And the same goes for Portugal. It's really saying, yes, we need investment, but let's be smart about it. Let's get investment that's going to help our economy. And I think that's been the whole change, a movement away from housing into constructive investment.
That depends on the economic reason underneath the surface.
Correct.
So we're back to the Portugal Golden Visa. Since it been introduced, it has been extremely hot in the market. However, the government chose to shut down the property investment purchase option in October 2023 and just retain the funds options for the investor. Why did you think the Portugal government make this decision? To discontinue the real estate option?
While the Golden Visa, the housing aspect is a very small portion of the overall housing market, it became a political problem. They have severe housing shortages in Portugal, both on a purchase and a rentability index, and this was not helping. So the government, for obvious reasons, had to make some changes. The program was not popular in the public. It was not achieving any economic goals. So they came back with this program, which is more of the fund program, venture capital funds, which would direct investments into sectors like hospitality, energy, technology, that really will help to drive and enhance the economy.
Yeah, depends on the goals you want to achieve.
Yes.
Okay. So the Mercan Group, as far as I know, also involved in developing the Golden Visa property investment project in the past few years. And you group also experienced this sudden close. The next question I want to ask is, how do you reduce the impacts of the changing policy or what kind of the measures you will be prepared for such a changing in the policy?
I think policy risk is really managing your compliance.
Yeah.
As you're aware of. So what we make sure is we have a strong legal team that ensures first our projects comply with the program. Second, we ensure that our customers are qualified buyers. So we do background checks on all our customers. So we really make sure we comply with the regulator and the aspect that goes with them. Now, in terms of policy risks change, if they shut down a program, where does that leave your investors? And that's really a valid point. And why we're fine with that is projects that we undertake are going to happen anyways.
Yeah.
So if the program shuts down, which it did, our projects are fine because they're economically viable projects that even if we lose our immigration funding, they're moving ahead no matter what. So I think that's what really sets us apart from other companies. And I think what you have to look at now in the fund market is there's so many funds.
Yeah.
And they're not all going to get the money they want to get. My worry and my concern is what's going to happen when these people don't have the funding, because a lot of these funds are set up just for immigration. So you have to be careful about that.
It has operated for over 35 years. That's quite a long time to show that you have a strong ability to focus on this policy changing.
Yes.
Yeah. So as we all know that European unions put on ongoing pressures on the investment policy, not only Portugal, but also member states. What kind of the stringent control that may be released in the future from your perspective? And could you please say that which project in Europe do you think is likely to shut down in the future?
I mean, throughout Europe.
Yeah, throughout.
Well, I think in terms of Portugal, there really is no indication that they're going to shut it down. It is constantly evolving, and I don't rule out further changes. I think the government acknowledges and realizes it's a strong investment incentive. So they are looking for more incentive. So I think in the short to medium term, the program in Portugal will still be viable. I think other programs across Europe, like Greece, is just changed.
Yeah.
I think it has super long-term viability, at least on a 5-year horizon, because it's really solving a housing problem in Greece. Malta is special. It's in the European court, and we all believe that Malta will win. The country will win that case. I still think there could be more programs coming up. I don't see anything shutting down at this point. Maybe programs coming back.
Yeah, hope so. Hope that more property for us for investor to choose. And after discussion the trends of the European, and the next part we will focus more on the Portugal funds option. And compared with a buyer real estate, what kind of the essential advantage for funds investment for immigration purpose?
I think funds are different because what they used to have is people would just go buy a house.
Yeah.
And when you buy a house, you take away a house from someone locally. So, it could be an existing house even. It doesn't really generate anything. The fund, you're structured and you're focused in terms of energy, hospitality, ours being a hospitality fund. And those type of activities tend to generate jobs and investment. In some respects, it's better for the investors, because you have fund managers that work with the developer to ensure their interests are aligned.
I see your point is more flexible for the government to choose the funds to develop that into the industry they want to grow. And not like the physical house, just you need to take it and sell.
Yeah, and you have professional management they'll manage the assets for you. So I think investors are getting a little bit better structure and
professional,
a little bit more professional. So I think that protects investors.
Okay. That's a good reason. And, in the shoes of the investors, the most ideal scenario is that you get the resident card on the one hand, and you got your investment back on the other without any risk. So based on your professional experience, could you please give us listeners some suggestion on how to find a reliable funds with good performance funds and how to evaluate the risk of the funds?
There's so many funds right now. There's 70
Yeah.
funds. So it's a little bit blurry in the marketplace. I think what you have to look at is a track record. How long is the fund and really the underlying assets or the activity of the fund? What's the history
Of the fund.
of the fund? For us, that's great because we've been involved in the hospitality industry. Our fund is hospitality. Actively in Portugal, where we've grown, so we're the largest internationally branded hotel chain in Portugal. So we have teams in terms of development, construction, and management to ensure the assets are run properly. So, I think, you have to look at track record. You have to look at what's the plan for the money. So a lot of funds will just say, here's my fund. Here's what we think we're going to do.
Yeah.
Give us your money. We don't know where it's going to go, but we think we can achieve a return. And so you're kind of wondering, geez, that's kind of confusing.
That's not trustworthy.
It's confusing. Whereas our fund says, we're raising this much money and this is where the money's going. And this is what we're going to do with your money. So it's really a structured sort of fund where where it's like 3 projects within a fund.
Yeah, clear perspectives.
Clear perspective, exactly.
What we are doing and how they're going on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think that, if you're an investor in another country, you're scared to lose your money.
Yeah, definitely.
Everybody knows how to make money. I think with us, what we offer is approach. Here's very clearly where your money's going. These are strong assets with no debt, no liabilities, and well managed. So I think that's kind of what people like to see.
Guaranteeing for the investor. Yeah. So for the overseas investors, besides they look at the record of the funds, how to make them to ensure that the funds they buy are completely compliant with all the requirements or instructions released by the immigration government?
Yeah, I think that's very important. The regulator in Portugal is CMVM. And, we have our compliance team to ensure that we're in compliance with the regulations, that our investors are compliant, the people we work with in selling our units are compliant, because we are in a regulated environment, a regulated product, and it's very important that you do meet the regulations that we work under.
So the Portugal is a developed market.
Correct.
At this point, maybe you can talk about the unique advantage of the Mercan funds in this competitive market. I guess you have already mentioned some points.
I think our competitive advantage is we have a fund, and it's made up of 3 hospitality properties, and two of them are 5-star hotels. One is a 5-star Hilton. One is a 5-star Hard Rock. Both in Algarve, and it's just the phase 3.
Yeah.
So the other 2 phases have already funded. So you really know both projects are moving forward with construction in the coming months. So it's a project that's moving ahead no matter what. So you don't have to worry, are you going to raise the money? Well, no, they're moving ahead no matter what. And the other project is a 4-star core property. And again, really good brand names, really good locations. So it gives you some comfort in that it's a product that you understand and can relate to.
The brand is quite a strong background to show, and you always provide the evidence for how the construction going on.
Exactly. Yeah. We have every 3 months construction reports, and you can monitor the progress of your project.
That's really attractive to the investor. So after we discuss the Portugal Golden Visa, and finally, we would like to compare the Golden Visa with other European countries' project for the last part. And first question is, which part of the world, maybe regions or countries that people think the Portugal Golden Visa are most attractive, and why?
Well, first off, I'll just say Portugal is probably if you want to get a European passport, it's by far the best. You invest, you hold your investment for 5 years, you get an A2 on your Portuguese through classes or exam, and you get your passport. So, but in terms of the market, surprisingly, our number 1 market for Portugal is the United States.
It's United States.
Yes, it's been our number 1 market, and not China, but United States.
Yeah, before you tell me, I think it's China because there's so many investors these days.
No, the United States is by far the largest for the last 3 years. But China's very popular too. But the Americans are still
30% of the market.
1/3. Yes.
Okay. And these days some people say that there is a quite long processing period for the government to review the application for the Golden Visa. And this has gradually made it less attractive to investors. What's your opinion?
Well, yeah, that I can talk how great the Golden Visa is and the program the track to getting the passport. And Portugal is amazing for that. It's a great program, but there has been horrible processing delays the last 3 years, and they've begun to take steps at the beginning of January to redo all the documents, collect everything, and to speed up the processing. So, I think they finally have taken an approach to clean up the backlog, and we're seeing it now. Just last week, we received 30 biometric appointments in 1 week. So, so we're seeing the movement, and we have such a volume. Finally, we can see light at the end of the tunnel. And in fact, we feel new cases going forward probably should come in around 12 to 14 months. So, now that we've cleaned up the backlog, I think for new people into the market, I think there's a bright future. But more importantly, which we care is the old customers. I think the pain and the delays you've experienced, which have really been unfortunate. We're finally seeing that being dealt with.
And in one of your interview, you mentioned that over 4,000 investors are involved in Mercan Group family. And could you please show us specific statistic about how many Golden Visa applicants have successfully got their passport? And is that simple to obtain the Portuguese citizen card?
Well, I think people sometimes wonder, what's the catch? Why is it real? Because it sounds too good to be true sometimes. But in fact, it's been shown that 35 days, over 5 years, and passing the beginner Portuguese exam has led to citizenship. And that's all it's taken. And you can ask any lawyer in Portugal, it's not just me, they're going to confirm it. And from our understanding, over 10,000 people have already received passports under the Golden Visa program. So it's a wonderful program. It works. They've cleaned up their delays. And I do think that there's a great future in the program. So, it's really a program if you want to get a passport, you want to get a citizenship. It's really the only way to go.
Thank you for joining us today and sharing this first-hand and impressive and comprehensive information with our clients. And I hope you're enjoying today's podcast. And please don't forget to subscribe us. See you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.